Hello, I'm Mike Urton, and today I am here with Diane Martinez, Tim Isaacson, and John Cosby of Immigrant Hope. And Immigrant Hope is a ministry that equips churches to provide immigrants with the hope of the gospel, helping them find a pathway to legal residency and a home in a church that cares for their needs. And so, if I could just ask all of you, could you briefly share how you got involved with Immigrant Hope?
For me, into Santa Barbara, and he had just happened to buy a home 20 years earlier in the densest area of Santa Barbara with an immigrant population. And so I started living among that immigrant population and then started working and worshiping upon that in the same neighborhood. And through that, the Lord just broke my heart for some of the issues that were going on with our immigrant neighbors. And so in 2011, I heard about Immigrant Hope. Our church was looking for a way to more tangibly serve the immigrant. And we went to the workshop on Immigrant Hope and came back, and the Lord did amazing things for in a year to help us open up our center starting in 2012.
Thank you. John, how did you get involved with Immigrant Hope?
So my wife Marge and I have served in cross-cultural missions for some 50 years now, primarily in Latin America. We moved back to the Phoenix area in 2017, and actually about the 1st of July in 2017. And in February, I believe it was February of 2018, Diane Martinez had the opportunity to share with a cluster of pastors in the Phoenix area, of pastors from EFCA churches. And I was invited to attend that. And for maybe the first time in my missionary career, I was able to connect with something that is doable in terms of immigration issues, with those things that had always been in front of us as we've served on both sides of the border. So I was intrigued by that and began to ask questions after the meeting, then began to talk with my wife and also with local pastors here, and as to the feasibility of that. And so one thing led to another. Within a side of a few months, we were able to gather 8 or so pastors that were interested in this type of ministry. 2 years later, we were able to open our center here in Mesa, Arizona.
And Tim, can you share a little bit about your story with us?
Yeah, I was an EFCA pastor, transitioning into more community-based ministry, and everything I tried, the Lord closed the doors on. And then my pastor, David Park, said, hey, there's this weird thing that the EFCA is starting called Immigrant Hope. So I went up to Chicago to the first one of the training up there in 2011. And a few years later, we were able to get recognized and accredited and open up. But I got to tell you, I fought God every step of the way to do this. I just didn't want to do it, but he kept opening the doors. And then the first time I actually sat across a human being to do some immigration work, and I saw, this broken, hurting person that I got to minister to and pray with. It's just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And I'd been a pastor for 10 years. I'd never seen something open the doors for the gospel so easily as just being there in someone's need and helping them to solve their problems. So.
Okay, and John, walk us through, how does someone become a client with Immigrant Hope?
So we accept clients on an appointment basis, and that may be somebody would be aware of by word of mouth or through the internet of Immigrant Hope Mesa, and would call us, and then we would set up an appointment with them. Sometimes on the telephone, we can discern a little bit what their needs are, and if we're able to serve them or not. We'll set up an initial appointment. They'll come in, give us their information, and then we'll sit down and have an initial interview with them. And during that interview, we most of the time are able to discern whether we're able to help them proceed with what they're after. And in some occasions, there is no pathway, and so we're able to help them that way as well, provide them with the truth that there is no pathway. And so then after that interview, whenever we can, we try to make it a practice to consult among our staff here, other accredited representatives that we have here on staff and staff in general, in terms of receiving the person as a client and beginning a case. We have paperwork that retainer agreement for them to sign to actually initiate the case, and then go from there.
Okay. And what would you say is the hoped for outcome for a client, someone who starts in with Immigrant Hope and going all the way through the process?
Well, I think the most profound hope and goal and outcome that we would have would be akin to what Tim just shared, the opportunity to be able to share the person of Christ with that person who's sitting across the desk. And so Immigrant Hope and the immigration process simply provides a context, a very tangible and real need context for the person to be able to do that. And secondly, to be able to provide an actual true and status for that person, where they might be, and what we can do to help them. Obviously, then if there is a pathway and we can help the person, then we would hope that as we go through the process, then their immigration needs would be met.
And as we said at the outset, you're all in different places all over the country. So Diane, you're in Santa Barbara, and Tim, you're in Atlanta. John, you're in Mesa. Could each of you tell us a little bit about your respective locations? What's distinct about them, or what's the same, or maybe both? And maybe Diane, could you start us off with that?
Sure. So being in California, our main clients come from Mexico and Central America. However, we have served over 60 countries. We have a large international student population, so we serve many different countries here. And the representation may look a little bit different. We happen to have 3 partially accredited reps, which means that we can represent clients that have a legal pathway to some kind of immigration benefit to the United States Citizens and Immigration Services in their application process. But we also have a fully accredited rep who is able to see individuals that may be in removal proceedings and have to go to immigration court. And we do a very wide variety of different types of immigration applications through the Santa Barbara office.
So, and Tim, is that pretty similar to what's happening in Atlanta, or there's some different nuances there?
Well, the types of cases are very similar. There's only so many avenues that the government gives for people, but I think each place also, they're unique in where they draw people from. For example, in Atlanta, we are called by social workers at the local children's hospital to help foreign-born parents who have seriously sick kids. They need to stay longer. Or the regional psychiatric hospital will contact us for people that are in their care. Domestic violence shelters, different places like that. So while a lot of the applications are similar, the populations can differ, and then certainly the places that you draw on will differ by location.
And John, what about Mesa? And what are some special issues that you're handling there?
Well, here in Mesa is right in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So our situation here is very similar to that of California, where a large section of people that we're able to serve come from some part of Latin America. However, in the past 2 years that we've been operational, we have been able to serve people from over 30 different countries. So Phoenix is a very international city, and so we have that opportunity to do that. I would say that the majority of our cases are family-based, where you have a family individual who is petitioning for somebody else in their family. But we have a wide variety, and we've had the opportunity to have a experience in a wide variety of immigration processes.
Let me just add, if I could, one of the developments that have happened over these last 6 months is that many of the Ukrainians wound up flying into Mexico and then coming over the border into across into San Diego, and many have wound up here. So we're actually partnering with a Ukrainian church and helping with applications of temporary protective status, or some may have other avenues as well. And so that's been in the last few months a population that we're now serving.
That's a great segue into our next question. One of your parts of your mission is to help immigrants find a home in the church. So, Tim, could you explain to us a little bit, if you're a local church, how do you get involved with Immigrant Hope?
Well, the most direct way is by an email or a phone call. I prefer email. I think most centers out there like ours, you get about 100 phone calls a week. So it's just usually easier to do email. And it's just like what you said, because one of the main pillars of what we're trying to do is to connect the work with the local church. And so we need all kinds of volunteers. For those with language skills, we use translators, people who can handle detail, and like that kind of work we can use for case managers to help clients put their application packets together. And of course, there's always different kinds of office-related tasks that need to be attended to. Many IH sites are also looking for potential board members. So if there's people in churches who are passionate about their faith and passionate about immigration and immigrants, then that's a possibility. And of course, there's fundamental need for all kinds of ministries, our prayer and financial support. And that's definitely true for Immigrant Hope Centers as well.
Okay, and what have been some challenges, if I could hear each of you on this, what have been some challenges you've seen local churches have in getting involved with Immigrant Hope? And John, if you could start us off with that.
Yeah, well, probably the one that's most prominent in our face would be political issues, and a misunderstanding of the reality of what's happening on the immigration scene. And I believe that another issue that a local church would have would be maybe a desire to do something of this nature, but then the process of setting up a nonprofit and going through all of the training and organizational aspects that need to set up a center might be daunting to some people. But I think that by and large, the blessings that, as Tim had mentioned, for different people involved in volunteer aspects from local churches, the blessings that people get, that it outweighs some of the difficulties. And to be able to sit down, even as a volunteer in an Immigrant Hope office center, and be either have contact with clients or be able to sit in or overhear what's going on and hear people's stories, changes the narrative of many people as they see face to face and hear their real story.
Yeah, face to face is the best way to get people to change their minds on a lot of things. So, Diane, could you answer that question as well about some challenges maybe you've seen in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, so I think I agree with John. I mean, there's a little bit of the political issue, but I think that by helping people understand that we're not taking either side, and that our role is to help people understand whether they do have a legal pathway, and if they do, to help them through only what the law allows us to do, and so. That helps clarify some things. And then I think the other issue that we see sometimes is that the language barrier. And so it stops some people from wanting to get involved. What we've been able to do is we also have a series of classes. So we are an education center as well. And that has been, we have 3 churches that are supporting us, and we now have 3 churches that are also have volunteers from those churches that are running the English class and the civics class, where they have to learn the civics and government thing in questions in English. And so where they're able to come in and help us with administrative stuff. But most of all, I think many of the churches are wanting to also be a part of the immigrant's life. And so it gives them a chance for that relationship building, which is, right, it's the relationship building that opens up the opportunity to share the hope of the gospel. And so, so having those partnerships, there's ways to work across those barriers and open it up that allows other churches to come in and participate. And honestly, the financial when they come in and they can participate like that, they're more willing to be a financial help for you as well.
So Tim, can you add anything to that about challenges you've seen in Atlanta in particular?
I'd say the 2 things. Definitely agree with the current political climate. But that's one of the things that I think Immigrant Hope can do is we've gone into churches as immigration experts, not taking a side, not trying to judge or ridicule, but to honestly answer questions about the Bible, the facts and realities of immigration, in ways that, sort of take the pressure off the local pastor by just having someone come in and talk to a Bible study or the church. But I'd also say one of the big challenges is some people live very disconnected lives from the sufferings that go on in their cities. So having a point where they don't just hear about the issues, but that there are ways to jump in and find solutions, like Diane was talking about, it's just very empowering. And I think that's one of the ways that Immigrant Hope centers are really a valuable asset to the local